When we start a game, we know a few things about that game. The rules vary, but we know the general rules. There is a start and a finish. Some people complete the game and others don't. Some games have time limits. The game will have laws and mechanics it follows that can't be broken unless cheats or codes are used. And in relation to what we're going to speak about, in relation to life, that would be hidden wisdom. There are other players as well as NPCs, mostly NPCs. The aspect I want to speak about within the game is the story of the game and time. Ultimately, when we compare life to a game, there are huge similarities. The thing with time within a game, the player is playing an experience which they are unaware of the end result, although it's already been written. Every game follows a story from start to finish. The player is aware of the start and finish, but unaware of when the finish will be and the events along the way. The player sees this as the unknown, and the future is the unknown, although the game itself is already complete. This is a paradox of the seen and unseen. It has the script for the whole story within it that hasn't yet been played out, like a package that opens seemingly as time goes forth, as the player progresses through the game, but a package that is already complete. Bringing this back to life, this means although the majority don't know what the future holds, it's already been written. We are just playing out the script. The player seemingly has free will, choices to make, things to do. Think of GTA and open world games. The player can choose his own path, take side quests, but ultimately he's still following a pre-chosen script which gives the player options, a sense of freedom, only to lead them to the same place via different routes. The game can in fact, in cases, have different endings, but again, they are pre-chosen, alternative endings, already set, giving the illusion of choice. There is no player action the player can make in the game the programmer isn't aware of, as they have written the code. In the case of God, it's both the programmer and the code. This is something all games we have the option to play have. They are running on algorithms. Even FIFA, the positioning of the players, how they defend and attack, how good they are at doing that, all the individual attributes are all algorithms laid out for you to take particular paths. And although many paths seem possible, they are still limited, even if there are millions. Most people aren't players, but are running off algorithms like NPCs. I personally believe algorithms have the ability to wake up to the fact they are algorithms. Like Pinocchio but reversed, the acknowledgement of first being a machine-like being, then breaking the code in allowing truer, freer movement in the game, still with limitations. Ultimately, the player is still a player in the game, only now knowing he's a player in the game. Being able to disassociate from the identity placed on him, such as human, he transcends, becomes the code, very similar to Neo in the Matrix. Although I've referred to algorithms as players, the question has to be asked is when this realization takes place, is that when one truly becomes a player in the game, where before they were not. With this said, in relation to life, the future can certainly be predicted, but more importantly, known and foreseen. Intelligent people always move ahead of the game, like in chess, seeing the happenings of the past and present to know the future, the potential moves a player can make. But more than that, more than logical guessing, is knowing. And by tapping into the consciousness of life, the code of the game, we can experience and see things we wouldn't have been able to do so from a subjective perspective. From the perspective of I, from the perspective of the character in the game. We need to become more than that to see the character and the reality the character is in. If you sit in a shopping mall, you will see all the other players or algorithms running around on quests, bullshit side quests, mostly chasing the latest trends or similar like things, all to keep their attention away from the end goal, which is finding themselves and the truth. Keeping many running around in the side quests all their lives, never making it to the main body of the quest and the objective, ultimately dying or running out of time before they realise and succeed. And even those that know the game rarely make it to the end, or should I say achieve the end goal. It's much harder said than done, or even knowing. Much harder to do than to know the methods and actions to take to get there. And besides keeping people stuck in side quests, keeping people from the truth of themselves, one of the main aspects and consequences of this is the paranoia, is the fear, is the pain that people feel. That energy is harvested and taken from those people. This is obviously done for a reason, to push people to one of two poles, like in a battery. But with this truth, with this knowledge, people take their strength back and would no longer become fearful of worldly situations. For when the player knows the game is a game, what should he be fearful of? The true masters of the world know this truth I speak of, and the power that it brings is much. And here we're just speaking about a game, but even a movie or a piece of music is the exact same. When we're sitting there watching a movie, we do not know what's going to happen or what's going to come next. Sometimes we may watch a trailer before and get little hints of what's going to come, but still we do not know the path it will take and the ending that will come. Even though it is already there, present, unseen, from the scene. And the same with music. When we listen to a track for the first time and we hear the music, we don't know the midpoint of the song and the end. Although we might know the rough length of that song, we do not know where it's going to go, if it's going to be a good song or it's going to be a bad song. Ultimately, it's the same. The music track is already laid out, already present, just not experienced yet. So with this said, the whole of time and truth lies underneath reality itself, and in fact is coding that reality itself. With the huge progressions in technology towards AI, we have to ask ourselves, are we heading to a point of singularity? A point where the end is the beginning? For what I'm talking about in terms of life, God really is an algorithm or code, and what we are in we have to question. Are we coming to a point in our reality where we come to the point of creation itself, or at least a form of creation? And if not, an ending is the beginning type of cycle and a singularity event, the fears around this are warranted, for if what we are in can be replicated, surely we'll have no positive consequences. The past, the future and the present, all running as one, all contained in the same place, only experienced subjectively as one straight line. Many see life as learning, but I see it as a case of re-remembering. Within the present moment lies both the past and the future. It's just a case we can't remember it. Like explained in comparison to the game, the script, the whole story already lies there, it's just not been experienced yet. And relating this to my own life, I've often spoke about I always knew something was going to happen on my 30th birthday. And what did happen was my mum died, which for a while left a hole in me until it strengthened me. And I asked myself the question, which I sometimes refer to as the backward flowing of time. As a child, it always seemed like I knew something was going to happen on my 30th birthday. Almost like it was already there. I already knew all this time, similar to what I'm speaking about with the game. But until I got to that moment and experienced it, I didn't actually know. And more so than that, there's been little bits of tension throughout my life with my mum. I wonder if her dying on my birthday and the subconscious knowing of that played a part in that itself. And to add even more to that, my relationship with my nan, who has been the closest person to me since a child, since a baby, since the moment I was born, looked after me and been my angel. Ultimately, it's just now me and her left. My mom dying and her partner dying, I now care and look after my nan. Maybe she felt this and knew this all along. this unconscious knowing of the unseen, of something that was going to come, that had already been played out but had not yet been played out, is already there, like packaged up, just not unpackaged. And we can compare this to a mother's intuition. Why is it that some mothers can sense when a child's going to be ill or there's going to be an event happen? They are very protective over particular children. Even when they have multiple children, there is always one that is different or special. And although an event hasn't taken place yet to warrant this, something in the future usually does. Whether that child gets hurt as a child or even as an adult many, many years later, the mother could always sense something. It could even be prison or related to many other things. This special ability that moms seem to be able to tune into, as they already have that connection, as that person has come out of them. And it could even be related to meeting someone for the first time and not really liking them, or not getting along with them and not knowing really why. And then years later you have a fight, let's say, with them. Did you have a fight with them because you never really got along with them? Or did you never really get along with them because you knew you were going to have a fight with them unconsciously? It's a mind-blowing type of ideal, but this is the type of ideal which rings truth. People don't know why they don't like somebody. They could say that them not liking that person led to the fight, but ultimately, why did they not like them? That led to the fight. And if they didn't like them because of a backward flowing of time and an unconscious knowing of the fight, then the fight was ultimately the consequence of them not knowing, which creates a cycle in events. A cycle of all time affecting one another, the future affecting the present and the past affecting the future too. The events of the future dictated by the events of the past, created by the events of the past. And events of the past imitated and created by the events of the future. You would say this was impossible to happen, but again, look at how a game works. This is the exact same scenario. The end result of the game creates the beginning of the game, and the beginning of the game leads to the end of the game. It's a cycle and a paradox which keeps it within its cycle. Ultimately, some see this as the trap. And to add further value to this, how do you think it is that shows like The Simpsons can predict the future? It's because they know the script and they know the narrative. And how do they know that? They know that, and by knowing the script and the narrative, they mock the populations that they know the script and the narrative, placing things from the future in the past, and potentially things from the past in the future. It is a power, an all-knowing power, as these cults refer to things such as the all-seeing eye, God being omnipresent, ultimately an algorithm or code also being omnipresent, and the knowing of that code makes one omnipresent and all-knowing, or at least the illusion of that. And you can see how that type of power can corrupt one, make one evil. So I feel the thing that I'm referring to and coming towards is an ability called total recall. Now most people, or scientists should I say, relate this to photographic memory, being able to call up memory at will. But total recall to me is something completely more. Total recall would be complete remembrance of absolutely everything of who you are. And everything of who you are is the consciousness and the coding of the game. So that would be full remembrance of yourself, of everything inside that game, including other people's, potential other lives you have lived, the future to come. You would ultimately become the game, being able to maneuver and know what the game will offer and bring, having saw the potential paths and consequences and knowing them. There is lots that I can compare in a game to life to make sense of how life works. But this was just a short video that I wanted to share with you. Something that I've had for a while, I just haven't made yet. We could go deep, and next time I'd like to speak about the character creation screen in a game. We could use The Sims as an example. When you first start the game, everybody creates a character on the character creation screen. There seems to be an element of free will within the character creation. But again, It is all predetermined and almost a false sense of choice and illusion, as there are only a particular amount of things you can choose from. Let's say there may be 10 shades of skin, 20 different eye sets, different types of hair, but still only 30 variations. And all the variations of the personal aspects could probably combined in different variations make potential millions of different avatars, which all vary in eye colours, skin tones, personality, character traits, etc. but are still from the very start limited to their choice, but still had an element of free will. The character creation screen in terms of our life and reality would be something we don't remember. It would come before the white light, before we are birthed. Once the character creation has been set, ultimately the next loading screen on the Sims game would be the loading through the tunnel, out the birth canal, into the game itself, for life to be played. Again, there are many analogies we can use comparing games to life, and on the same sense, the world could be looked at as a circuit board, which I always talk about. And in that sense, we're energy. Energy which is in a cycle, an energy which can be harvested and manipulated. And ultimately, the truth of this reality is being kept from every single individual. And if they knew the truth of this reality, they could take their strength back. Instead, they are being manipulated and their energy fed. It's time to take our power back. Love and light, people.